In the limitations section of the paper, the researchers pointed out that the study focused on the generation of young adults, which were millennials. This generation might be especially susceptible for the effects of interest because they use smartphones more and differently than other generations. Um, just as a personal note, to talk about the millennial generation, um, there's been a lot of changes from the time that I was a kid to the young people growing up now. I can say that a lot of the older brother age people to me, and even people in my own age group, there was a time where before we had the internet, the only way we can watch programming was on a kind of a tube CRT TV, right? And the only way we could make a phone call was through a landline or a cord phone or a rotary phone for the older generations. So to go from that and to have one leg in that world and another leg in a world where um, I myself went to college in a time when Facebook was coming out and YouTube was blossoming, and so I actually have a perspective of appreciating both the old way of technology and the new way. And I can only imagine the struggles that the kids these days have, and that kind of informs the questions and the critiques that I have about the study. Um, uh, Further studies should try to replicate the findings with more representative samples and compare different generations. And one question that I would have would be, does the Z generation consume more internet or social media? Are they more distracted than millennials? I know the millennials have a we at least have some kind of reference point to how to operate in a world without a phone. We came from a time when we there was no Amazon and we had to rent books from a library, and maybe we might have some like a PlayStation or a Sega Saturn, but those days kind of lent themselves to maybe going out and playing, and I think millennials maybe had a chance to be really well adjusted. The Z generation is kind of the first generation where they're kids who were born in the Facebook era and the YouTube era. And do those kids and soon to be young adults, do they are they having trouble adjusting? Are they consuming more of those tech resources? And how does that compare to the findings from the millennial group? Another question I would have is maybe in 20 years, how does the usage of the alpha generation compare to their parents, which are the millennials? Do they consume less than the previous generation since their parents grew up in an age without the internet? And that would be a great question and a great question to investigate. Is my children are I believe the term is alphas, right? So millennials or myself, Gen Gen Z or the young people who are in high school, and then the alphas are the really little kids. And since I have kind of a insight into what the world was like before, and I have a stronger sense of how the importance of being well adjusted. Um, will I pass that on to my kids, and will studies kind of validate that hypothesis? And will my kids in turn be exist in a world where they're more well adjusted to the ample opportunities to get involved with technology? So those are kind of the questions, not so much critiques, but some of the questions that I would have for the next iteration of the study, or even for the study as it presently is.